I always respected the old man's ability to put out work. When the mood would hit him and he'd get into it, he was able to sit down and experience these moments of creative bliss. He could work around the clock without sleep. It was crazy. He'd do the same thing for writing. He'd sit down 10, 12-hour sessions easily. It'd make even a full-time author blush with the output and how fast he could write a novella. I always really respected that. I wish I could channel some of that into my own work. Lately, I've been struggling. The hardest thing about writing is just writing. It's so hard. You wouldn't think it is, but it is. Some people believe in writer's block, some don't. I know Stephen King's always been just about sitting down and writing. I always felt like the problem when that happened was you're just trying to force it out. Yeah, you need to do that sometimes, but it can have consequences as well. You know, if what you're writing isn't working, maybe it's time to change that up. I've experienced a lot of that lately, doing my own novella, and wrote it a while ago, and it was pretty good. It got a lot of good feedback, which was great. I shelved it for a bit, let it sit, came back to it recently, put out 40,000 words, nothing crazy, you know, it's a novella. And right before I started querying, I had like this weird moment, almost like getting cold feet. Not that I was afraid of rejection, that's going to happen. But it's like I was overcome in the moment with the fact that I'm like, this is just too short. You know, this is part one of 3 parts, and I'm going to try and query and get the first one published, and it just, I don't know, I felt like I needed to figure it out and actually complete it. Submit it as a full-length novel, 100,000 words roughly. And I started to try and work on part 2. And it's not even that I hit writer's block. I just lost the passion in that moment for it. And I moved on to other projects, which are going pretty good. I was shooting a video before this one, and of course I had the camera flip the other way. But the gist of what I was talking about was you can fall into this trap of endlessly rewriting the same thing, especially if you go back and edit while you're working. You should never do this. It's where you maybe put a couple chapters in, and then a few chapters later, if you're gardening, as George Martin called it, you're gardening, so there's no plot, there's no storyboard, you're just writing, you're just trusting your subconscious and your gut instincts. Eventually you're going to contradict yourself, and that's usually okay, because you're going to go back at some point and fix all of it up. But then sometimes what you're going to do is you're going to be writing and you're going to hit something that completely annihilates the whole beginning of what you're doing. It's happened to me. You go, oh my God, this is a good thing. And then you go back and you go, well, I've got to go back and change the beginning now. I've got to go figure this out. And then you get stuck in this vicious loop of just doing the same thing over and over again. It hasn't happened to me in a long time, but I used to really get caught up in that. The old man, his issue was he could never finish certain things. He'd sit down, he'd write his novella, he could never go back either, really. He couldn't produce a second draft. For him, it was one draft and then he was bored of it. He never wanted to go back again. I bring all this up because beyond just the archival footage and things like that we have, I've mentioned it before, I've got boxes and boxes filled with his writing. A lot of finished short stories. This is something that Stacy was really excited to learn about when she was doing her video for Outdoor Adventures Gone Wrong, that he was a writer. He wrote dozens and dozens of short stories and books, and I have all of that. So this is one of those things where it's like I'm trying to do Fog of Ypres, and then I hit a roadblock there, and then maybe I'm working on another piece. And there's still an almost autobiographical piece that I'm working on. Too many things. And then I'm like, oh my God, what if I took all the old man's writing and kind of compiled it? Not dissimilar to what he did with Shards of Time, but maybe taking my own spin on it, some creative liberties. So it's not 100% his, and it wouldn't be 100% mine, almost like co-writing it in a way. And I feel like I let too many things get in the way. I think it happens to a lot of people, but it's just so hard to just sit down and start going and keep it up. And not just that, I mean, it's a significant commitment. It's a commitment that I have undertaken multiple times, and it takes years to finish a piece of work, whether it's a full-length novel or a novella. But then it doesn't stop there, right? That's honestly the easy part, is writing it, and you got to get that query letter right. Oh, there's so many pieces that move, but it's honestly that second, third draft that's been getting me lately. It's been so tough. Of course, when the old man would do it, he'd just kind of finish it and put it in a corner. Or if he was really onto something, he'd finish it, put very little effort into editing it beyond grammatical errors, and he'd go right to self-publishing. He never really put much thought into self-publishing either. I think that's a different story for a different time, but maybe we'll get into the self-publishing sometime. Yeah, well, that's a long one. I was going to start rambling on about that. Oh, I got to. Usually, if you're going to self-publish something, it's because you intend to skip the line in a way, cut through a lot of the red tape, if you will. You skip the agency, you skip the publishing company, and you sell directly to your fan base. Now, the old man always had a fan base, so I could never understand how he never figured this out, where it's like people would buy this. Anyway, so he'd go spend thousands of dollars and self-publish these books, and they just sit in a corner because he didn't have anybody to send them to. Right? Because nobody knew about them. He couldn't market anything. It was hilarious. Of the thousands of self-published copies he made, man. I swear, I've only got a handful at home. Thank God I have those ones. But one of these days, I always say, there's a lot going on. There is. But hopefully I can start making the literary side of that pick up. Not just for my own works, but the old man's got a lot out there, and some of it's not too bad either. Some of it needs some work for sure. It's a rough first or second draft at best, but there's a story there with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And over the years and everything he told me, I feel like I have a good enough thought process on the plot and what he was going for. I might even be able to make something happen. One day, that is the hope. We will get there. I expect massive changes in 2026, and hopefully an explosion of output from In Search of an Answer. I really do, because that's where all roads are leading right now. It's just about the journey getting there. These things take time, they take money. Right now it takes a lot of time. And that's just something I don't got a lot of time off.